Today we're making this incredibly delicious butternut squash soup.
Good soup.
It is so good, so easy. Stick around. All right, let's get started on this butternut squash soup. So naturally, the first thing we're gonna need is some butternut squashes. Squashes. Now for this recipe, you're gonna need 1 3-pound squash. However, you could do like I am and use 2 1.5-pound squashes. And what we are going to do next is simply peel our squashes. Once our squashes are completely peeled, I'm going to cut the top and the bottom off of both of these. And carefully, as I might add, as you can see, they're a little bit slippery. Nevertheless, the job must get done, so take your time. Go carefully and slowly. Once the tops and bottoms have been cut off of both of them, I went ahead and gave each of them a little rinse. And now I'm going to pat them dry. Then I'm going to cut each squash directly down the middle. Then we are going to clean them up a little bit by scooping out the seeds and the guts from each one. We are also going to make some toasted pepitas or toasted pumpkin seeds to garnish our butternut squash soup with. I will show that later on in the video, so make sure you stick around and see that. Once all of our butternut squash halves are cleaned, degutted, de-seeded, and dried, we are going to cut them into some nice sized chunks. To do so, we are going to cut them lengthwise and then again crosswise. Take your chunks, add them to a bowl for now. And this just seems like one of the perfect autumn recipes. The colors, the flavors, the spices, they all scream autumn. They all scream October. Perfect for any chilly autumn day. With our squash all prepped and done, we'll set it to the side for now. Next, I got some ginger. For this recipe, we're going to need 1 teaspoon of freshly grated ginger. So for that, I'm just going to cut off a small nub and I'm going to give my ginger nub a quick little peel. Then it's getting grated. And like I said before, we're only going to need about 1 teaspoon, which is good because ginger is pretty strong. But I gotta say, fresh ginger smells amazing. There's something so intoxicating. I don't know about anybody else, but I love the smell of ginger. And of course, I just want to point out, if you had to, you could also use the powdered ginger if you needed to, if that's all you had to in a pinch. With our ginger prepped, we'll place it to the side for now. We're also gonna need 1 medium yellow sweet onion, which of course are my favorite onions ever. And we're gonna give these a medium dice, nothing too serious. You don't gotta worry about the chop or the size of the dice too much because this is all gonna get blended up later on. Onions chopped and added to a bowl. That's another item checked off the prep list. Next, we got some garlic cloves, 3 garlic cloves to be precise. And we're just going to give those a little tap with the back of our knives, make it a little easier to peel, open them up, peel it out. And then you could either dice this up right now, or you could do what I'm going to do, and that's just throw these into our garlic press later. To each his own. You don't judge, and I won't judge either. Okay, garlic's done. That's another item checked off the prep list. Over at the stove, and we're finally ready to cook. We got a large pot over medium heat. Once our pan is hot, we're going to add about a tablespoon of olive oil. Let that heat up. Add your onions in, just your onions for now. A little salt and pepper, about 1/4 teaspoon each. Then we're going to cook these until that onions are nice and tender, about 5 minutes, stirring occasionally. Of course. Once your onions are nice and tender, go ahead and add in those butternut squash chunks. Give that a good old stir. Then we're going to cook this for about 10 minutes, stirring occasionally until those butternut squash chunks start to soften up. After 10 minutes, we're going to crush in those 3 cloves of garlic. We're going to add in that teaspoon of freshly grated ginger. We're going to add in 1 tablespoon of chopped sage, 1/2 tablespoon of rosemary. Give that a good stir and continue cooking for 1 minute until everything is nice and fragrant. Then we are going to add in 3 cups of vegetable broth. But you know what? My butternut squash wasn't completely covered, so I went ahead and added 1 more cup of vegetable broth. Give this a stir, turn the heat up, and bring this to a boil. Once at a boil, give it another stir, then cover it. Then you want to simmer this for about 30 minutes until those butternut squash chunks are nice and soft and fork tender. Okay, fork tender. That's what we're looking for. And once our butternut squash chunks are fork tender, we are ready to move on to the next step. Well, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to let this soup cool slightly for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to move on to the next step. For the next step, you're either going to need a blender or an immersion blender. I'm going to use my immersion blender, which is another reason why you want to let that soup cool. Well, not the soup, it's not soup yet. You want to let those chunks cool slightly before putting it in your blender or using your immersion blender so you don't burn yourself. And that's basically the next step. If you're using your blender, go ahead and work in small batches and blend it up until it is nice and smooth and a bright orange and creamy. If you're using your immersion blender, same thing, blend it up until it is nice and smooth, bright orange and creamy. And once everything is nice and blended up, there's only a few more things left to do. One of them that you're going to do right now is, of course, tasting for seasoning. If it needs a little bit more salt, a little bit more pepper. Mine was good. Mine was pretty good. So now it's on to the next step, plating. Now, plating, we're going to keep it super simple. We're going to put a few of those toasted pepitas or those toasted pumpkin seeds. If you want to see how to make that, I'll put that at the end of this video. And a little bit of some fresh parsley, and that's it. Our butternut squash soup is done. It smells amazing. I'm ready to dig in. Now, this part of the video is done. If you want to see how we made those incredibly delicious pumpkin seeds, I'm going to show you right now. So the first thing we're going to need to make our roasted pumpkin seeds is, of course, a pumpkin. And I believe this is a pumpkin pie pumpkin. And I went ahead and washed the skin with a little bit of baking soda and vinegar. Give it a nice pat down down and dry it off. And then it's time to have some adult unsupervised fun. We're going to cut this thing open. In this part, you want to be extra careful, okay? I already have 6 stitches on one finger and I don't want any more in any more of my fingers. And once your pumpkin is cut open, it is time to do that tedious process of scooping all of those guts out and all of those seeds out, which is really annoying because it's really slippery and hard to do. As you can see here, it's giving me a pretty hard time. I know some people use like the hand mixers with the beaters and they sort of go in and just whip everything up and then scoop it out. But since I cut it in half this way, I was kind of worried if I did that, everything would kind of just go flying all over the walls and make a mess. So I figured just keep at it, and in no time you'll have a bowl filled with delicious yummy seeds and guts. What you want to do next is bring these over to the sink and grab a colander and thoroughly wash these out, okay? You want to get all those pumpkin guts, anything orange out of there. Make sure they are thoroughly washed and cleaned, and just as important, you want to make sure these are thoroughly dry, okay? Any moisture will prevent them from browning properly, so go ahead and put down some paper towels, get them nice and dry. Spread them out nice and evenly. Go ahead and blot them with a paper towel. Do whatever you got to do to get these completely dry. Once your pumpkin seeds are completely dry, go ahead and add them to a large bowl. And now would be a good time to preheat that oven to 350 degrees. Now it would also be a good time to tell you that the full recipe, ingredients, and everything will be in the description below. And if you like what you see so far, hit the video with a thumbs up. Or if you're new around here or just not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It means a lot to me. You should now have a bowl filled with your clean, dried pumpkin seeds. So to your pumpkin seeds, we're going to add about a tablespoon of olive oil. For the seasonings, I'm not going to measure them out, but I'm going to do about 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/4 teaspoon of the following: paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper. We're going to give this a good mixing, the mixing it deserves. Then we're going down with a baking tray, aluminum foil, lightly greased. Pour your seeds right on. Spread those pepperoni tonys out so that they're in a nice even layer. This way they brown evenly and nicely. And with our oven preheated to 350 degrees, we are going to bake these for 15 minutes, going in every 5 minutes and giving them a little toss to make sure that they brown evenly and nicely. And that's it. Your toasted pumpkin seeds are done. These things are literally so good. Once you eat one, you cannot stop. And that's how you make those roasted pumpkin seeds. And that's it for our butternut squash soup. That's it for this video. That's it for me in this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.